Honorable Minister Carlos James, Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture, and Mr. Ricardo Adams, the Chairman of the Carnival Development Corporation, members of the print and electronic media, especially VC3, NBC Radio, and Star FM, those who are taking this press conference live. To all our listeners out there, a pleasant good morning. It is said that the only thing in life that is constant is change itself. And we have to admit that COVID-19 has taught us to adjust to changes on a constant basis. Not too long ago, we were here outlining the conditions for Vincy Mass. This was followed by an aggressive one dose and done campaign. And here we are again this morning talking about changes. With us, we have the Honorable Minister and we have the Chairman of the CDC. We hopefully would be joined by a rep from the medical fraternity. And at this point, I would move straight to having our Minister update us on what is happening with the protocols. Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much, Ashford, and good morning to members of the media, recognizing the chair of the Carnival Development Corporation who's here with us as well. We basically call this brief press conference to provide an update in terms of our preparations for a number of events, scheduled events over the Easter weekend, which is approaching, as well as our premier festival, Vincy Mass. And following a previous press announcement that we had originally intended for Vincy Mass 2022, albeit in a very limited format, which involved vaccinated events and moving our Tuesday parade to the E.T. Joshua tarmac at Arnold's Vale. Based on the current health protocols and extensive discussions with the Ministry of Health, the COVID-19 Task Force, and the Carnival Development Corporation, and also with the continued low positivity rates which we're seeing now and which hopefully will continue closer to the period of the festival, and all things being equal, we are pleased to announce that Vincy Mass 2022 will return to Victoria Park and the streets of Kingston for the 2 days of parade, as the traditional Mass would normally take place. Essentially, events comprising our Carnival Vincy Mass will be open to the general public. This is, again, as I said, based on the amendments to the protocols. The CDC, they have commenced full promotions and will, in a very short period of time, release to the general public the full promotions for a full-on Vincy Mass 2022. During these promotions, persons would be encouraged to, of course, get vaccinated and also continue to practice in all of the health protocols, wearing of masks, physical distancing, as we continue to navigate this very unusual period which has been brought on due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to state clearly that this decision is based on the positivity rate at the particular time. For instance, if you move to a positivity rate during or close to the carnival period of, let's say, 5% and above, we will naturally revert back to the original planned controlled events in a controlled environment where the health protocols would trump. Of of course, most of those activities will be vaccinated events. And I cannot continue to emphasize the need for us to all protect ourselves by adhering to the necessary health protocols, getting vaccinated, but importantly, reducing the transmission or possible transmission of the COVID-19 virus during the period of activities which are likely to take place over the Easter weekend and also during the Carnival period. I mentioned Easter because similar events are planned over the Easter weekend. The Beckway Easter Regatta is on, though in a very limited way because of the time constraints. The organizers on Beckway wanted to have an event this year, and we have encouraged them to also participate in onshore and offshore activities, but in a very limited way due to the constraints due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but also the short period of time in which, based on the protocols which have been relaxed to allow for full-on events in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. During the Easter weekend, the Union Island Easterval activity is also expected to take place. And we ask that you support these events, these local activities in the Grenadines, but adhere to the protocols, very importantly, because though these two events are scheduled to take place over the Easter weekend, and quite a number of activities, I know on the weekend coming, there's the expected launch of the Easterval on Union, and of course the Beckway Regatta Committee, they've also planned a number of activities. What transpires post-Easter would really determine the direction we go as it relates to our premier festival, Vincy Mass. So we continue to emphasize and continue to encourage persons to adhere to the protocols, get vaccinated, protect yourself, reduce transmission rates, and be mindful that sometimes even though we are going out to have, enjoy the activities and the festivities, there are vulnerable people among us in our population who are at home, who sometimes when we leave and we go out on a normal day to some of these activities, we are returning home to persons who are vulnerable, who have underlying health conditions. And we must always take that into consideration, into account, when we participate in the activities that are likely to take place over the Easter weekend and also leading up to the Carnival period of June, July. You know, Vincy Mass it's not just about having fun and partying. It's really importantly about our culture, the economic considerations relative to our artisans, which is including mass men or builders, producers, promoters, calypsonians, even the food handlers and vendors who line the streets of Kingston during that period. Of course, people also who travel to our destination. They come here because of Vincy Mass, they want to participate, they want to indulge in our culture and what we have to offer as a people. So we are not, yes, I've had the conversation that there needs to be a national release, but there are also greater considerations at play. The preservation of our culture, and our cultural identity as a people, the promotion of our artisans in their work, to ensure that they're also able to generate revenue around this period, and importantly, to ensure that we do not lose the calendar dates that are listed for Vincy Mass in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the hottest carnival in the Caribbean. I know of some other countries who are looking to shift their events during our July slot, and this is the premier July festival that everyone across North America and Europe, they're looking forward to Vincy Mass during this period. And we have to ensure that we continue to host our activities during that period so that we don't lose our slots. And we continue to see more persons coming to St. Vincent and the Grenadines during that time to participate in Vincy Mass 2022. I also want to emphasize again that though we will expect to have a full-on carnival and a period of activities, and also during the Easter weekend, a full-on period of activities during Easterval and the Beckway Regatta. The positivity rate on the day or leading up to these events will determine how our activities proceed during those periods. Particularly, as I said, if for any given period you have positive cases coming out of different health districts, which can indicate to us the possibility of community spread, quite obviously our health officials will have to do the responsible thing and make the necessary adjustments to our health protocols, which will obviously affect how we roll out activities during the Easter weekend and also during the Vincy Mass festival. All of these events which we will plan and which we will have promotion associated and aligned with these events are tentative to or likely to change based on the health protocols during the given period. And that is why I continue to encourage us to, importantly, get vaccinated, limit the transmission, adhere to the protocols, wear a mask, protect yourself, protect your families and loved ones, and generally the public, and be alert as to, possible events or locations which you may go to, which can put you at risk and persons who are vulnerable within our population at risk. So, all in all, having said the combination of what we're concluding to is that we're expecting to have a full Vincy Mass 2022. The CDC, the chair and the CEO will give an update as to where we are in terms of plans with our mass men and Calypsonians and so on, Pankai Mass. But essentially, we have been given the green light by our health professionals to proceed with the full promotion of a Vincy Mass 2022 and also full promotion of our Easter weekend of activities, mainly the Easterval Festival on Union Island and the Beckway Easter Regatta on Beckway. And I continue to emphasize, let us be on guard and adhere to all of the protocols as it relates to these activities. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Honorable Carlos James, Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture. Ashford Wood, CEO of the Carnival Development Corporation. Members of the media, friends of Vincy Mass following us all across the globe. Good morning. Let me preface this by saying that for 2 years now, every time we have spoken to the general public and to the media, we have always said that we at CDC are pretty good at what we do where Vincy Mass is concerned. We have never professed to be medical professionals, and we have always gone based on the advice and the recommendations of the medical professionals. We have been very hopeful for the last couple of months that the time would come when the medical professionals would give us the green light to go ahead with Vincy Mass, as we as a nation would love to, and as we as a CDC would love to facilitate. And so that word came on Friday, that as it stands now, Vincy Mass can happen in its traditional sense. I can tell you that the energy that is bottled up waiting to be released is not going to make it a traditional Vincy Mass in terms of the enthusiasm of the general public. But at least you remember when we went initially to meet with the cabinet, we had proposed a number of vaccinated events, scale back events, more controlled locations, etc. And now, again, going on the guidance of the professionals, we have been able to revert to some of our traditional venues. We are now able to say that we can go back to the streets of Kingstown as it stands today. Our position at the CDC still hasn't changed. If the medical professionals tell us down the road that we need to go back to a more controlled Vincy mass, then again we will be guided by that. But we are very hopeful that Vincy mass 2022 will be a full-blown Vincy mass. So our understanding of the change in protocols is that the limitations on persons going to venues such as restaurants, bars, churches, etc. has been removed. And so therefore, that allows us to do things like the Calypso tents, and so can now go back to their traditional venues with their full participation, etc. Also the restriction on vaccinated versus unvaccinated persons, that has also been removed. So again, that makes our clientele pretty much the entire nation and anybody who's willing to get here in terms of the physical participation in Vincy Mass. So that bodes very well for our cultural components. That bodes very well for the people who are putting on private events, because now it basically opens the market to a much larger extent in terms of who they're able to facilitate. Now, I know there's still a limitation of 75% for events. There's still a limitation of 75% of the capacity. But for those of you who are familiar with Victoria Park, if we were to bring shows back into Victoria Park, there's probably only one show that really challenges the concept of 75% capacity of Victoria Park. So that being said, as we indicated, that information came out on Friday, in effect. And so we met with the CMO, as we always do, as we have always done. We met with the CMO and we had a discussion. And out of the discussion, we agreed that the following would happen. One, that based on the amendments to the protocols, the CDC would commence the promotions of a full Vincy Mass 2022. And we have an ad that will be released either later today or tomorrow. But that ad is pretty much ready for release. Secondly, during our promotions of Vincy Mass, we would still encourage persons to follow sensible protocols. So in crowded areas where you may feel that there's an opportunity for spread, should there be any COVID infected persons in that area, please continue to social distance, please continue to wear your mask, please continue to wash your hands. Just as you would if you got into a room and there was anybody who had a bad case of the flu and they were sneezing, and you would exercise certain sensible protocols. So we implore you to continue to do that. For instance, we're taking note of what has been happening in China, in UK, where they're again seeing rises in cases. And we're obviously monitoring that very closely, because that can have an impact on what happens with us. The ministry and the CDC would have discussions with the components of Carnival and private promoters to encourage persons, again, to follow all the social protocols. If the message is that continue to vaccinate, because just as we have all the diseases that have been supposedly eradicated and we keep them eradicated through a continuous vaccination program, we continue to tell people that vaccination is one of the best ways that the medical professionals advise to either A, limit your ability to get COVID, and B, certainly limit your hospitalization chances and your chances of becoming very sick from COVID. Thirdly, should there be a spike in COVID cases, the Ministry of Health, that's the fourth point, the Ministry of Health would initiate the necessary protocols to deal with the situation. We were hoping to have a representative from the ministry here this morning to speak specifically to that, because that has been one of the big questions that has come out of it. What triggers the reversal of the opening up? What sends us back into more restricted mode? I can tell you from my understanding, there are two numbers that have been pushed out. One is that if there are more than 10 people who become infected who are not epidemiologically related, and when I say not epidemiologically related, if we have a meeting here and 10 people out of this meeting become infected, we can say that there is a source in a contained group of people who are epidemiologically related, and so therefore we can capture that bubble and shut it down. If, however, 10 people become infected across the island who have had no contact with each other, no obvious contact with each other, then we know that we're back into a community spread scenario, and therefore we will have to take actions to limit the spread across the community. So that's the first trigger. The second trigger, as far as I also understand, is more than 5% positivity rate when we do testing, more than 5% of a positivity rate over the course of a week. You may have, of course, you may have a flight come in or something happen, a case where a number of people who are epidemiologically related, a number of people go and there's a breakout in that particular group and it goes above 5% on the day that you test. That is not the trick. If on a consistent basis over the course of a week you have 5%, then the medical professionals will have to step in to deal with that. Based on that, the ministry and the CDC would move forward with a slogan that basically says, let's stay below 5 to keep the festival alive. So we're going to continue to push social responsibility. As the minister indicated, there are going to be a number of events over the Easter weekend. We want people to go out and enjoy themselves, but we don't want people to be reckless. And traditionally, the theme of Vincy Mass has been, we've been one of the safest carnivals, and we ask people to continue to be safe. This time, perhaps not stressing on safe in terms of violence, but safe in terms of the management of your own health and safety. All right? Out of that, we're having our scheduled board meeting this evening where we will discuss with the main stakeholders of Vincy Mass the components of Vincy Mass and the members of the board, the way forward, followed by which we will have a meeting with the stakeholders. And when I say the stakeholders across the gamut of the entertainment industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the cultural industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So again, we're going to coordinate that meeting between ourselves, the Ministry of Health professionals, so that they can further articulate and advise on how we go about trying to keep it below 5 so that we can keep Vincy Mass and our festival alive. Interestingly, we talk about starting promotions for Vincy Mass, but I almost feel as though Vincy Mass started on the weekend, because I was at the Victoria Park where there was a fantastic show, the school band showcase, where we were able to put on stage, I think if I remember correctly from Rodney, it was like 27 performances on Saturday evening into Saturday night, from schools across the island. And again, it was an open event, so people were able to come, and the energy that was there coming out of the artists, the people who really have this cultural expression, you know, they want to get this out. They have all of this inside them that they want to get out. There was apparently a young man who, one of the performers, who turned around and thanked his teacher for believing in them and allowing them to be able to come and do this. So again, you know, our focus has always been on the youth and ensuring that we look for continuity of our festival through investment in the youth. So it was really heartening to see that. And then, of course, I went to VPL. And apart from the really exciting cricket that was happening, the energy that was out there, the performances from our cultural representatives, etc., really gave me the feel that people are out there, and we got so many questions, you know, what are we going to have for Vincy Mass, etc. So we're really thrilled that there's already music coming out. There are people who came to me and said, should I go in the studio? And I said, come on, go in the studio, because I've always said, I don't recall Bob Marley producing music for a festival, or Michael Jackson producing music for a festival, or any one of those big artists producing music specifically for a festival. Good music is good music, and good music will play across the world once it is good. So go ahead, release your music. And so I know a number of persons are in the studio already. A number of persons told me they're going to the studio this week. They've already made appointments, etc. So we're hoping that the music comes out. We're starting our international promotions. Over the years, you remember that we would have had relationships with Synergy TV, who has been pushing Vincy Mas and has been really a good friend to Vincy Mas. So we're starting our promotions with Synergy TV. We're already in discussions with them as to where we are going to go with that, how much coverage we're getting, etc. So that promotion will start imminently, because we believe that Easter, we like to let Easter have their time and enjoy themselves and get out of the way, and then the Vincy Mas truck hits the road. So really, within the next week or two, you will really see Vincy Mas promotions begin again, I should say, because we started before, we kind of pulled back, and we're going to go again full blast. Contingencies, we obviously, as I said, we are going to be guided by the medical professionals, and if the medical professionals dictate that we go back to a scaled-back version of Vincy Mas, a vaccinated version of Vincy Mas, etc., those plans have already been put in place. So those plans have not been destroyed, they've just been put on the shelf, so that if we have to revert to a vaccinated or a scaled-back version of Vincy Mas, we can easily reactivate those plans. So we will always keep that contingency in mind and keep that on the table. We've also been asked by the cabinet to submit a proposal for reasonable compensation for persons who would have expended resources if the festival is not able to happen. And we've submitted that to the cabinet. And so we're pretty hopeful that that would be taken on board, and that would also be sitting there as a contingency. But as it stands, we're going down the road of a full Vincy Mas in terms of our planning at this point in time. The stakeholders, we're encouraging everybody to get involved again. Those who, and Minister mentioned a number of stakeholders, but stakeholders go beyond even the regular practitioners. They also go to the hairdressers who do a lot of work. The passenger van drivers get to do a lot of work. The taxi people get to do a lot of work, etc. Right? The hotels, I've spoken to a number of hotels who've already seen, hotel managers who've already seen that their numbers have been going up with what has been happening in St. Vincent, and we anticipate that again there will be a significant jump after this announcement of Vincy Mas, because people have been calling from all over, basically waiting to get confirmation so that they can book their flights. So I imagine that a number of the other stakeholders would be benefiting, and we hope that you're preparing. We're speaking to the components, because the components were preparing at a certain level, and now we're going to expect that they would be able to ramp up. So again, we're going to have that component meeting fairly shortly. We've had discussions with a number of sponsors already, some of who've come on board, at a scaled back, or who've offered to come on board at a scaled back level, because we were having a scaled back carnival. I know my CEO is going to be calling them to say, well, now we have a full-blown carnival. We expect to be able to talk about full-blown sponsorship. But we always take this opportunity to invite anyone who wants to be part of Carnival. If you're a peanut vendor up the road and you want to be part of Vincy Mas, we will find a way to make you part of Vincy Mas. Right? There are some people who might not be able to do sponsorship in cash, but you could do sponsorship in kind. And obviously, the more people that we get to come in and support the Vincy Mas product, the better it is for Vincy Mass, and the better it is for St. Vincent and the Grenadines on a whole, because I always say, what we do is not for the CDC, and is not for Vincy Mass, and is not for Luther and Fireman and Blondie Bird and Bex, and it's not for those, it is for St. Vincent and the Grenadines as a whole. So the more people who participate in Vincy Mass, the better I think it would be for all of us. So I just want to close by saying we are working on a full Vincy Mass with contingency plans in the background. We're looking and hopeful that we can have maximum participation from the countries from whom we traditionally get a lot of visitors, and also countries from whom we traditionally do not get a lot of visitors, but who have been starved for entertainment and who have heard of the energy of Vincy Mass and would like to come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But we just implore, as we do always, when you come to Vincy Mass, which we know is the hottest carnival in the Caribbean, when you come here, this year we're saying things nice again. So when you come here, let's help to keep things nice by enjoying ourselves in a social, a responsible manner, and observing like your social distancing and your sensible protocols. All right? But enjoy yourself, come to Vincy Mass, and things go nice again. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? Anybody?
I have a question.
Sure.
Minister James. Have there been any outline of new entry protocols for persons coming to Vincy Mass from outside? In terms of quarantine, in terms of unvaccinated people?
Now, as it relates to health protocols, they very much remain the same for the time being, which is that persons who are vaccinated and also unvaccinated are welcome to come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Of course, those who are vaccinated will only require a rapid antigen test 24 hours before disembarking at Argyle International Airport or the ports in Kingston by sea, as well as a 72-hour pre-arrival PCR test. Of course, we are guided by our health officials, and we don't know if these will change eventually going into, as we see the low positivity rate continues, hopefully, and limited hospitalization as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. But of course, at present, we are operating within what the existing protocols are in relation to that. But persons who are coming to St. Vincent, I mean, if you're planning to come to St. Vincent for Vincy Mass, and the numbers are showing most persons who are traveling anyway are fully vaccinated. There's a limited amount of people who would travel in and will have to quarantine. And in fact, some of the persons who are actually quarantining would have taken the vaccine, but not within the 2-week period of the last vaccination to be able to travel effectively without being quarantined in country. But from this press briefing today, it's essentially a message to the diaspora and the people in North America or the Caribbean islands and in Europe. Vincy Mass is on. It's a full-on Vincy Mass for the time being based on the health protocols. And we are asking you to book your flights now, get your tickets reserved, get to St. Vincent and the Grenadines during the June-July period for our Vincy Mass festivities.
I have one more question. CBC. You would have outlined some dates and some events. Will there be any changes to those events and the dates, seeing that we have a full broadcast?
All right, so the dates for Vincy Mass remain the same. We're following the same standard range of dates, which runs from Friday, 24th of June to Tuesday, the 5th of July. What we will have happening is we still have pretty much the program that was put out. What we will have happening is perhaps the introduction of one or two of the junior shows that were kind of put off because of the fact that they would have been more difficult to manage. The movement of some of the events from locations as identified before to new locations based on the fact that we can now cater for larger numbers. So, for instance, the one thing that comes to mind is that Mardi Gras, we had originally said would have been at the tarmac. We now have permission to have Mardi Gras back in Kingstown. So that will move back to Kingstown. We're still looking to do the Emerald Isle at Pembroke. We're still looking to do the Raga and Soca semifinals there. We're still looking to do Evo at the cruise ship terminal, etc. The one thing that, I guess the biggest thing that would change would be the fact that the Monday and Tuesday will now revert to the streets of Kingstown.
Okay, one last question. Rural Carnival, will that be sanctioned?
We are in discussion with the Rural Carnival organizers, and one of the things again that we're discussing with them is the capacity to put on the festival that they would have traditionally done. Now, a number of the rural carnivals, for instance, would have had beauty pageants, and it is obviously too late now to put on a quality beauty pageant in the traditional rural carnival period. However, if rural carnivals have other cultural components that they want to showcase, if rural carnivals have bands resident in, like steel bands resident in their communities, soca artists resident in their communities, and there are shows that we can support along those lines, then again, within the financial constraints, of course, that are imposed on the CDC by virtue of the fact that we were planning for a scaled back Vincy Mass, we would certainly support those. Again, that's an active discussion that we've been having. I'm pretty sure with this press release today, that discussion will be even more rigorous this evening at our board meeting. So, as I said, we will be engaging all of the stakeholders in over the next week or two to discuss what their states of readiness are, what additional capacity they want to bring to the table, how they want to ramp up what they were originally planning. And that would, of course, involve the rural carnivals to see where they are. There are some who may indicate that, you know what, it's just too late for me to start planning now. And there are others who will say, you know what, I have a strong enough committee with the support from CDC that I can pull a good rural carnival together. And we continue to encourage them. Don't make it a wet fit and jump up, but include the cultural aspect of it, because what we want Vincy Mass this year to be, in particular, is the drive to bring back the cultural expression of our people back into Vincy Mass.
Questions, anyone else? Could you see it on in pages? Okay? Okay.
Just to conclude in my comments here, it's really important for me to reiterate again the point that though we have a full-on Easter period of activities, the Beckway Easter Regatta, we continue to give full support to the committee, or the committees who have joined forces to organize the onshore and offshore activities on Beckway. Importantly this year, because of the limited period in which organizers had to plan the activities, we would not have a significant international presence during the Beckway Easter Regatta. But fortunately for our local stakeholders, a lot more activities surrounding the onshore activities have been planned in relation to the boat racing, different categories of boats, a number of participations from youth sailors as well. So we're hopefully going to see quite an interesting period during the Easter weekend in Beckway in terms of the regatta. We're going back to the traditional boat racing. A number of different categories of traditional boats will be participating. A bit more usual than we would normally have, because traditionally we've slightly shifted away from the traditional racing, and I've seen a lot more of the larger vessels coming in to participate. But this year we are going homegrown, local festival on Beckway in terms of the Easter regatta, and I'm looking forward to it. But again, I continue to say, let us adhere to all of the health protocols and be very mindful of the possibility of COVID-19 and its impact on our health here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And again, we go down to Union, Easterval, this weekend, this Sunday, in fact, they officially launched their Easterval celebrations with an official launch this weekend, Sunday, but going into the week of activities leading into Easter. We expect to see a number of private promoters who are putting on activities, but also the Easterval Committee and the Union Island Tourist Bureau have been doing tremendous work and continue to work together to host a number of activities during the Easter. Again, we ask patrons to support, give their support to these two local activities. Next year, not to make any announcement now, but we're hoping to have a much larger participation in terms of the Grenadines where Easter is concerned, and to put together a comprehensive package that touches and concern every single Grenadine island. We have to involve all of the Grenadine islands, so it's one of our biggest selling points in terms of tourism, and we have to obviously put activities in place that can represent fully the indigenous culture within the Grenadines, and of course they will have my full support on that as we plan for big and better next year. But this year we're on, and again, persons who are listening from the diaspora, whether you're in Toronto, New York, Miami, London, wherever you are, Germany, Holland, and then Barbados, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Trinidad, Vincy Mass 2022, it's on. We expect to see a full-on Vincy Mass in terms of activities, a full Vincy Mass with all of the components participating. Again, this is based on our positivity rate as it relates to our COVID-19 positivity rate during the particular period of Vincy Mass, which is, as the chair of the CDC explained, we have a number of contingencies in place where it's subject to change based on the positivity rate and based on the requirements and the guidelines given by health officials. But for all intents and purposes, we've called this press conference to alert not just the local but the regional, international media and all of the persons who would participate in our premier carnival, premier festival Vincy Mass, that this year 2022 we're expecting to have a full-on Vincy Mass, and we're expecting and welcoming visitors to our destination. And of course, we're asking all the mass men, the Pankai Mass stakeholders to get ready and to put yourself in order, because we want to put on one of the best Vincy Mass we've had, based on the period of not having a Vincy Mass in the last 2 years. Patrons are expecting quality work, quality music, quality production, and we have to live up to the quality of what Vincy Mass is. It's a premier Caribbean festival. I say it's a premier festival in St. Vincent, but it's also a premier Caribbean festival that a lot of people look forward to. And I'm hoping that we can all continue to be safe, adhere to the protocols, wear your mask, get vaccinated, because it is proven, the science is saying that even though you're vaccinated and you can be COVID-19 positive, what it does, it limits the transmission, and we have to, of course, prevent community spread during that period, because once there's a community spread, it's going to affect the activities surrounding our carnival. So it's important that all of us take the necessary health precaution. I know there's a promotion ongoing right now with CDC and the Ministry of Health vaccination campaign. It will continue to be rolled out. And if ever you see the truck and the RTs and the persons coming in the area, into your area, take the opportunity to get vaccinated if you haven't. And we're doing this one for the culture, and we're doing this one for all of the stakeholders who are involved in Vincy Mass. And I want to thank you very much for the media for coming out, and thank you to all of the patrons, all of the stakeholders who have really had to endure 2 years of not having our premier and one of the Caribbean's premier festivals being held. And we want to thank you for your patience, but we're back, and we're back in a very big way, giving support to all of the stakeholders and patrons who would participate during the Vincy Mass festivities.
Thank you very much.
Once upon a time, Name and Sylvester was part of a regatta activity. But the prospect of selling mainland components and giant grenadines kind of operation.
Well, not to overshadow the current plans that are ongoing for the Beckway Regatta this year, but I can tell you we've already had some preliminary discussions to have a massive regatta next year, which would possibly see the Beckway Regatta being rebranded to incorporate other Grenadine islands and also the mainland, because there's always that spill off with room stock in terms of hotels and services and so on that are offered on mainland as well. But we're expecting to see something that is of an international quality and flavor that will come to St. Vincent and the Grenadines during that Easter weekend. And I want to give support fully to the homegrown Easterval and Beckway Regatta organizers who have been putting in the work for it to have this one in 2022, despite the challenges of COVID-19. But I'm pretty certain next year we're going to see something remarkably different but exciting that is going to involve all of the stakeholders in St. Vincent as well as the Grenadines in relation to our Easter festivities.
Any other questions? So we good? Well, the word is out. Easter is on. Vincy Mass is on. Let me thank each and everyone for coming out this morning. And at this point, let me also thank the Minister and the Chairman for being here with us to bring the good news. And of course, as we always say, before you leave, I'll make sure you don't leave without a snack.